All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to Cheers from Afar. I am Dalen with Grain Bin Brewing Company, and I'm here with Craig Pearson from Trolley 5. And what are we drinking today, Craig?
Today we're drinking the barrel-aged version of our collaboration we did last summer. It's an imperial stout that we had rest in gin barrels over the last number of months.
Yeah, so I know we just released this one quite recently, and it has become one of the ones that I reach for the most. Have you had the opportunity to try it yet, Craig? Or?
I may have sampled it earlier. It was a little tempting having it in my fridge. So
yeah. All right. Well, I'm just realizing I didn't have a bottle opener. All right.
Going old school. I like it. I had to use a fork myself.
Okay. So yeah, like Craig said, this is a beer that we brewed last summer, and we had released it, what was it, maybe late fall initially?
Yeah, it was late fall.
Okay, and so we had released it initially, we had called it Nuptials, and it was only available in 1.5 liter Magnum bottles. So there wasn't a ton of them. So if you got your hands on one, congrats. And if not, I'm afraid they're all gone. So too bad. Yeah. So as you can see, it pours jet black, and yeah. What were your initial thoughts with this one, Craig?
With the gin barrel or with the original?
Well, actually, you know what? What did you think of the difference between the two?
I really enjoyed the difference. I liked and still have one of the sample bottles you had sent to me. I really enjoyed the beer. It was obviously very big, a bit boozy, but I'm also really excited to see what it becomes. So I'm just letting it age. But at the same time, I also enjoy how this one aged as well and took on the some of the botanicals of the gin and obviously the oakiness of the barrel. But at the same time, it is a different beer. But I think I like the barrel aged better. But it's also a little older, smoothed out a little bit. You know, there's a few of the characteristics that have kind of rounded themselves out. So
yeah, it's definitely so it's a stronger beer. It's 11.8%. And I remember when we were initially brewing it, we decided to use an English ale yeast just because we knew it was going to be big, and we wanted something that didn't necessarily attenuate as well. So I'm kind of glad we did.
Yeah, left a bit of that sweetness, a little more body in it. Didn't dry right out.
Mm-hmm. You know, but yeah, so we called this one Second Season. It's actually the second. It's the second turn that this beer has had in the gin barrels, and I was pleasantly surprised with how much of those botanicals, like the juniper and star anise and even a hint of the vanillins from the oak, how much of those still came through.
Yeah, the juniper is quite prevalent in the nose, which I really like. I enjoy gin, so anytime you put a beer in a barrel, it's usually pretty good.
Yeah, so it's I know it was a bit of a gamble doing a blend of a darker beer in a unique barrel, kind of like the gin barrels that we did use. But yeah, I'm impressed. I'm happy that it's something that we pursued.
I agree. I think it turned out better than I could have expected. I've done a few different beers in gin barrels and had some successes and some failures. You know, where I put an IPA in and it turned out really well, whereas I put like a white IPA in it, it didn't work at all. It just kind of sputtered and failed. I thought the botanicals would really mesh well with the flavors of the white IPA, and it just didn't. So I was a little hesitant when you first had said, let's put it into a gin barrel. But at the same time, I knew it could turn out really well, and I think it did.
Yeah, and I know it was a super limited release too, so it wasn't like we were gambling with the future of both Trolley 5 and Grain Bin.
No, we didn't put our mortgage on it or anything like that.
I think it was 60 gallons maybe in total. So we had maybe 10 or 11 cases.
Yeah.
So Craig, a lot has changed, I guess, in the last little while.
Yeah, no kidding.
So Trolley 5 is based out of Calgary. It's a brew pub. I know the couple times that I've been, it's kind of like a full service restaurant that focuses on beer. What are some of the things that you guys have done in the last month in order to I guess survive this whole like COVID?
Yeah, and that's kind of the word of the day around here lately is survival, and obviously having to shut the restaurant down. We had a number of staff have to go on EI and do all of that. Obviously our bartenders, the kitchen's closed, our servers all. And so the brewery team has stayed mostly intact, and we're basically turned our restaurant, which is no longer a restaurant, almost into a production facility / warehouse where we're packing boxes, we're making mix packs, we're doing whatever we can in-house to keep costs down, while at the same time we're selling beer out the front door. We're still, able to do that. We still obviously have our license and all that, and so we're selling beer out of house, as well as have turned to doing home delivery, which I know a number of people have that weren't doing it before. And so, while my days have become a lot more eventful in that I don't really know what I'm going to be doing. I might have to brew a beer, I might have to transfer, filter a beer or whatever. But at the same time, I might be going out, spending the day driving around the city and dropping off beer to the people that ordered it. In the last little while, that's expanded, and we've started running to Red Deer, Lethbridge, and even Edmonton. I think we've gone there 3 weeks in a row.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, so we're just kind of doing whatever we can. Obviously then on top of that, we're still selling through all the liquor stores that we would normally have. But when your pub that sells a lot of your beer is shut down, a massive client of yours is gone. And on top of that, we have a number of partners we work with around not only the city, but around Alberta in reality, and that's just gone.
Yeah, I know for us at Grain Bin, before we were probably running about 60% of our total volume as draft to like off sales, like bars and restaurants, to serve as draft. And then we were doing a good chunk of draft in our tap room, and then the rest was off sales, whether it was retail bottles and cans at the brewery or wholesale bottles and cans to liquor stores. I know that we had a bit of a surprise with like, all right, well, all of a sudden we're not selling any drafts, and we have to kind of relook at how we're packaging and selling product. And so so I know for us, like we use a mobile canning service to package our beer, and so we've had to rely on them a lot more. And I know you guys not only do you can your beer, but you also do kegs. Can you tell me a little bit? I've noticed on Instagram you have a promo with keg sales. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically it's like kegs for a cause. And so the first keg of the week sold, we donate the entire proceeds to a local charity. And we've partnered with a couple of different radio stations in town, and for their kids charities, or their there was I can't remember the food one now, but various charities that that help the community. And so we're just trying to kind of do our part, and that's the proceeds from either like 20-liter or 50-liter kegs that we do. So we still have to have a little bit of stock of that on hand, but like you had said, the vast majority of what we're doing now is cans, because we're not even doing growler sales or anything like that out of the pub. It's just 6 bags.
Yeah, it's tough coming from like a production side, and like the process of brewing beer, it's a few weeks, and so you got to have a schedule in place. And I know for us, like that was one of the biggest things, is now with the new reality, like whether we do an emergency canning run, or in all this beer and fermenters that we had assigned for empty kegs, like all of a sudden, like there's no point in putting it in kegs because
Nope.
it's not going to move. Yeah, that was just like, for us, that was quite the shock. Do you guys use a mobile canning service too, or do you have a canning line?
No, we have a canning line. We have a small cask SAM, like a 3-head filler, and so we obviously have to try and do our best with distancing and keeping space and not bringing in a lot of people to do that. Whereas before, we could usually find volunteers and whatnot through the restaurant, like that worked here. A lot of our bartenders, we feed them and give them some beer, and then they're happy to help. Whereas now we're a little, obviously things have changed, and we can't really be doing that anymore. But on the other side of that is that we have good partners with a contract facility that help out on our larger brands, and so that's still moving forward and not being too much of a burden here at the pub. However, it doesn't make it any easier either, really.
Did you find that once like restaurants and tap rooms closed, did you find that your brewing schedule changed much? I know, like for us, like we not only did we change like how we were packaging our beer, but we changed drastically what was being packaged, and also what we were forecasting for brewing.
Yeah.
Just like with the knowledge that everything was going to have to get put into either bottles and cans.
Yeah, we had to, and we had some stuff that we had just kegged kind of before, like maybe a week before not even a week before everything got shut down, and so we've had to, make those are the first ones we pushed them back into the tank, and then did samples and make sure that they weren't infected or anything like that, and then we're able to package those into cans. Whereas our brewing schedule has changed drastically. Without that demand for kegs, without that for the draft lines, our need to brew is significantly smaller. But like you had said, losing that 60 or 65, whatever your number was, I think ours was up over 70% of what we did was in pushing 80 actually, was in kegs and for draft. And so like with that massive a drop, we don't need to be brewing 3 times a week any longer. So we've brewed a couple of times, like beer's still moving, but we're just obviously making different use of the beer that we had in house and in the tank beforehand, and then moving forward, just kind of brew as we go.
Have you with the disruption, have you been able to find time to brew something that maybe you may not have necessarily done before. Like for example, we rather than packaging some of the mainstays that we or brewing some of the mainstays that we typically brew for restaurants and bars, because we're throwing everything into cans and bottles. Next week we're going to be experimenting with a new Kviak yeast. It's supposed to be super clean, lager-like properties. And so we're going to be kind of doing a quick lager just to see how that yeast works. Have you had any kind of like surprise opportunities to brew something that normally wouldn't be in rotation?
We actually haven't. If anything, we've almost doubled down on cores because that's all that we have packaged. We don't normally package outside of keg sales or draft lines. We don't package any seasonals or one-offs, and without having those kind of avenues, then it creates just kind of more expenses. And with us already having, say, like printed cans for our high five or our white IPA that we already own, they're sitting there. We have to kind of make use of that, and so we haven't been, spending the money to get labels done and kind of having the design and all those sorts of things done. So it's in a way a little bit on the boring side, but at the same time, it's such a survival mode. It just doesn't really matter. As much as fun as it would be to be playing around with lots of new fun recipes and ingredients.
Yeah, we've had, man, this week has been the longest month of my life. Like we've had such a bad week in terms of brewing, and but I mean, part of it is like the back of your mind, like, well, at least I'm able to be working and to go in, and luckily for us, like we're still able to brew from time to time. When you are brewing, what is the beer, or maybe even just the style? What do you typically really look forward to when you're brewing?
There isn't a particular style that I'm really looking forward to in terms of what we're doing. I enjoy all of the beers that we do produce, and so that obviously makes things a little bit easier. Our newest product into like cans is our Hazy Shade. It's a New England Pale Ale, and because that's kind of the newest, it's probably the most fun. It's still exciting and all that, but at the same time, it doesn't mean I don't enjoy brewing our IPA or our white IPA or even our lagers. I think that trying to do the same thing every single time, it's a difficult task to have the exact same outcome every single time you brew, and that kind of keeps it easy in regard to like focusing on that brew. So
yeah, I know for us, like with so probably like our Red Willow Amber is like our biggest volume beer, and I mean, with us being smaller batch, and you're going to be small batch as well, I know one of the biggest things is like consistency within batches. Like we always are trying to improve upon existing beers, whether it's the ingredients that go into it, or maybe we do a yeast change up or a hops adjustment or something like that. And so we try to make any adjustment as small as possible, but yeah, we're always trying to improve upon each beer, just to make sure that our most recent batch of beer is like the most successful in our mind. And I mean, I know for us, like one of the big things, like a brew day is always an exciting day just because you're starting on something new. Packaging days are kind of terrible for us just because we're so inefficient with packaging.
That's fair.
If brewing something new is exciting for you, what's kind of like the day that you're maybe not looking forward to when you're going in?
I think a day like today, we had a bit of an issue with our seamer on our canning line, and so we had to dig backwards through the last batch we canned and find a few leakers, and that's always a miserable thing when you've worked hard to do something and then to package it and then have it ready to go out to customers only to find out that it's not ready for them, and then you have to create even more work for you to make sure that that product is okay. So that's probably the toughest thing, and the thing I look forward to the least is having to deal with those mistakes or incidents if they occur. For the most part, though, there isn't too much that I don't at least enjoy doing on some level, even if it's just cleaning a tank or cleaning the floors or whatever the case may be, the brew house.
Yeah, there's people. I think a lot of times I notice that people, um, they find out that your career or your job is a brewer, and they just have like this fantasized
Yeah.
idea of what that is. Like all you do is essentially this. Like it's just sitting
Yeah.
around drinking beer, talking about beer. Where in reality, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of
Yeah.
cleaning, and sometimes you get to handle the equipment, and it's fun.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I tell people we're kind of glorified janitors,
exactly.
how much
Uh,
cleaning that we do.
but I mean, yeah, even the days when all you're doing is just managing the squeegee, it's yeah, it's still nice to. Um, I mean, I don't know if I've had a few other jobs, and by far this, even though it's given me the most gray hairs, by far this is the job that I cherish the most.
For sure.
When you are brewing, is there a specific like ingredient or I really enjoy playing with malts and um, exploring new yeasts is a big thing for me.
Hmm.
I like hops, but I think if between like malt hops and yeast, if you were to give me the option of exploring something new, I would
Yeah.
probably pick yeast and then maybe malt and then finally hops. Um, when you're brewing or coming up with a new recipe, what aspect of brewing, whether it's yeast, malt, hops, or even like water chemistry, what are
Hmm.
the things that kind of really drive your curiosity?
While I do really like hops, I'd probably put those, or hops is probably my number one. Malt would probably be my number two, and then yeast three. But that's kind of out of necessity, in that I have the yeast strains that I have, and I don't get to play with trying to keep costs down and all that sort of the boring side of it. I don't get to play with yeast too much, although it is a fascinating thing. When you're dealing with a living entity, it's such a delicate thing to do. It is kind of amazing, but at the same time, I maybe I shouldn't have ranked them. I'd say they're probably pretty equal, and they offer such different things. Hops can be amazing, and you can do such fun, fruity, delicious things with it, whether it's bitter or you know a juice bomb or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, it can be such a frustrating thing at, at, at the same time. Whereas malt, it's a little more I find a little more that staple, that base of your beer. Um, yeah, I guess I can't really pick one then. I do really like hops though. I like to drink hops, or beers with lots of hops in them, whether it's a double IPA or New England, or like a big robust stout that has 60 IBUs. Maybe that would probably be hops, I guess, by smallest of margins. But yeah, they're all very, very cool, and it's such, I don't know.
Has there been any like processes or anything like that you've been exploring lately that have kind of like changed some of the way, kind of the way that you things you're brewing things? Like for example, we did a barley wine for some reason recently. That was yeah. I don't know what we were thinking, but we did a barley wine recently that we did an 18-hour boil with, and so it's just like so some of those just like an extended time boil, and then also in the same ballpark, we've done quite a few IPAs recently that are like a 0-minute boil IPA. So we'll just bring them to boil, and then call it quits at that point, just to get a little bit more of like a protein haze.
Yep.
And then some beers we've done are, like the first hops touch the beer once the wort is cooled to 140 Fahrenheit. So it's like a 0 IBU beer.
Yep.
Is there any like as a brewer, is there any processes that have really kind of excited you, or something that you've wanted to try, or something that you've been exploring?
Yeah, with our New England Pale, it's not necessarily the last month or anything, but since that we've brought that on, working with like the High Krausen Hop Edition was one that I hadn't done before that beer, and so that's had some really cool kind of effects, as well as the I haven't done a 0 boil like IPA. Chilling the wort post boil and then doing a large hop addition at the end is something that we have done in the I guess shorter history, and so you get those nice kind of the fruit and the juiciness out of those hops without getting those IBUs and getting that kind of the bitterness of it. That's been a lot of fun, but like I had said earlier, not having the ability to do the kind of one-offs and not having a pilot batch, because when we commit to a brew, we're doing 15 barrels of it, so we're getting a fair amount of it. Not having that ability, we don't get to play as much as others do in terms of doing something really fun, but at the same time, those are things that I've enjoyed as of late.
Yeah, and actually right now so this week, like I said, it's been kind of a terrible brewing week.
Sure.
So we're doing a bunch of IPAs this week, and we're doing a session, an IPA, a double IPA, and a triple IPA.
Nice.
And we're keeping the malt bill all the same. And so we're doing equal parts Pilsen, pale, wheat, and flaked oats. And
nice.
Yeah, so we got like 25% beers. So we have some beers that are like 25% oats and 25% wheat.
Are you doing glycols at all or no?
Yeah, it's all flaked oats. Yeah. So essentially, we're making porridge and then trying to do like a triple imperial version of just like this porridge pale ale.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've had a couple of long days lately, and it's
no kidding. You sleep to bed?
It hasn't been fun, but yeah, at least I think we're yeah, I guess we'll see what comes of it, but we're having some fun. We're having a time exploring you know, kind of like the limits of our system and what we can do. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we're blessed with is a little bit of a smaller system, so we can explore some of those. But I know we do have plans. Maybe as soon as these restrictions are lifted, I'm hoping to head down to Calgary and spend a little bit more time with you and your team and make some more.
Well, we look forward to having you, that's for sure. And I know, you know, we were supposed to have a beer on tap right now, but things happen apparently. But we'll take care of it then.
Yeah. Well, I guess in the short term, so you guys are doing you're doing deliveries as far as Edmonton.
Yeah.
And
no, we haven't got up to GP yet, but you never know.
Yeah, it's a bit of a throw, but yeah. So I guess if anybody's looking for some quality Calgary beer, Trolley 5. Do you guys do one delivery day as far as Edmonton, or
no? Oh, as Edmonton, I think we've done. Today was the day, so I don't know if it's going to be like every Thursday moving forward, but we put it up on social media kind of when we're going to go, and so then hopefully people can get their orders in if that's something they're interested in, and then we'll make it happen.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you're as far north as Edmonton, I would absolutely vouch for the Trolley 5 beer. So order some Trolley 5 and get it in you. And then if you want to try any of the Grain Bin stuff, we do in-town delivery within Grand Prairie, as well as province-wide delivery through our website. And then we just this week started nationwide delivery. So anywhere in Canada, if you want to try some of our small batch beers, you can hit us up. Yeah, and we'll mail them to you. But Craig, thanks so much for taking the time. I know it is an odd time right now, and this was a pretty big ask to get you to spend some of your time trying some beer. But yeah, out of those.
Again, thanks for having me to do the beer in the first place. It was lots of fun to hang out with you and brewing your system.
And it's out of those 500 mils, like I'm almost at the end. It's very smooth. It drinks easy and
incredibly easy. Yeah, this is the last of mine, so
definitely worth checking out.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Craig.
No, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Cheers.